Hello, my name is Kelly Eric, and I will be presenting Group 6's discussion of a budget reduction for the fictional Complex County Public Library System. This is for UB's LIS581 course, Management of Libraries and Information Agencies. My group members are Amanda Lau and Elizabeth Stengel. Let's begin our fictional budget meeting for the CCPL. Welcome to the CCPL's budget meeting, where we will be discussing an 18% reduction in total spending for fiscal year 2013-2014. This has been a difficult process for the library management team, which consists of myself, Kelly Eric, Amanda Lau, and Elizabeth Stengel. Throughout this process, we have referred to our mission statement and its strategic plan in order to keep our proposals in line with the CCPL's values. I'll read the mission statement now in case you're unfamiliar with it. Inspiring the spirit of exploration and the power of imagination, promoting the joy of reading, and supporting the lifelong pursuit of knowledge for all people. Social values are held above financial ones. And by that, I mean our proposals took into account more than just the numbers. We want to honor the CCPL's mission while making these difficult budget decisions. And we want to continue to make the library an inspirational resource for the community and for their pursuit of knowledge. Currently, the CCPL supports 4 different locations: a main branch, a regional branch to the north, and 2 municipal branches to the east and west. We serve a county of nearly 60,000 people, and that's just 73 staff members. The main branch provides staff compensation, as in benefits and salaries, for all 4 locations, and library materials for the 2 municipal branches. The regional branch supplies its own library materials. As you can see by the chart, we experienced a nearly 45% increase in funds from 2011 to 2012. So an 18% reduction this year, while serious, is still significantly more than where we were 2 years ago. Because the main branch provides so much financial support to the other locations, we wanted to show you some of the current funding levels and its changes over the past few years. By far, we spend the most on staff and library materials, which is not surprising. And please note that the last column represents an across-the-board 18% reduction. It's not necessarily one of our proposed options. I'd also like to point out that we went from spending $15,000 in 2011 on library materials to $350,000 in 2012. So that was a pretty big jump, and you'll notice another significant change in compensation as well. With all that in mind, here are the numbers that we will be working with. Actual spending last year was $1.8 million. If we take last year's budget total and reduce it by 18%, we get $1.5 million. So we are looking at a reduction of $330,850.35. In order to figure out where best to make reduction, it was only logical to assess our current patron services. There are services that are necessary for library operations, including interlibrary loan. We want to make sure the books get back to their home library, computer and internet access, the online patron catalog, and everything necessary to maintain 4 physical locations. There is also a genealogy program at the main branch and regional branch, although the main branch does answer many more genealogy questions than the regional branch, 31 to 5 in fact. A book meal and a book mail service is offered to serve seniors and users who are homebound, and it should be noted that postage must be paid for the books sent by mail. The libraries are also open Sundays for the convenience of patrons. While this is convenient, it does generate further costs for that additional day of operation. Finally, there are the more traditional library roles of information services. The municipal branches offer various special events like story time, summer reading, and other programs for the community. And course, we purchase books and movies and magazines, and it's perhaps one of the library's largest services, and naturally it generates a large expense. And let's not forget all of our staff providing reference services. So, our task is to reduce spending by $330,850, or 18% of the overall budget. There are a number of ways to do this, but we seek the ones that are most in line with the CCPL's mission and service goals. An 18% reduction could affect our patrons' access to relevant information. It could lower staff morale, and it could change how people see us. Altogether, we are looking at doing less than we did last year when we had such a large increase to our budget bottom line. In devising budget goals, we considered our different wants and needs, figuring out what we might be able to do without as an organization. It is important to us to be able to maintain the current staffing to the best of our ability. People are a large part of library service. Without the people, it is hard to successfully provide services. The library becomes just a room full of books. That being said, we would like to maintain our current material resources and collections. A library without books isn't very useful to our patrons. And we'd also like to continue running programs. These are often an important part of information services. Since the budget for library materials nearly matches our reduction goal, option 1 would be to enact a materials spending freeze. However, we noticed some superfluous one-time expenses in the budget, so what we're really looking at is an 83% reduction in library materials spending. With fewer incoming items, processing supplies can also be reduced, although we're not going to eliminate processing supplies because you still use those for repairs and donations. After implementing the changes from option 1, the money saved on materials would be $291,069.11. The Y2K computer compliance hasn't been an expense in 15 years, and the vehicle replacement was a one-time cost from last year. Add in the processing supplies, and we have saved enough money. We've gone over it, actually. We have saved $330,919.06. By implementing a material spending reduction, we would be able to successfully meet our goal of reducing the budget by at least 18%. This would also mean that we would ideally be able to maintain our current staffing levels and even continue to bring in some new materials. Services to our patrons would not be disrupted. On the other hand, there would be far fewer library items for the coming year. This may lead to temporary layoffs of the processing staff. Although this is not reflected in the overall budget, it was just a possibility we wanted to mention. There's usually plenty of work to do in the library. Though the proposals of a materials spending reduction seems like it would be a good idea, there are some slight problems. A materials spending reduction directly violates our goal of offering both easy and timely access to popular materials. Put simply, we will not have the most current items. This may result in a public library that would be less attractive and useful to its patrons. And due to this lack of availability, patrons could be prompted to go elsewhere, such as Amazon or Barnes & Noble. And the library's reputation as a reliable information source could be compromised. If we were to implement option 1, our library staff would have to be very selective in their collection development, possibly assessing current circulation statistics to make more informed purchasing decisions. We should begin a public relations campaign to inform patrons of the reduction, and we may have to contact vendors regarding cancellation or suspension of accounts. The second viable option we call trimming. a term we're using to describe the process of going through the budget line by line and determining what can be cut. Trimming helped us identify and remove superfluous budget items, such as the Y2K compliance we mentioned earlier. Supply materials budgets would be reduced by 50%. This version of trimming would also eliminate the libraries offered on Sunday and underutilized library services like the Bookmobile, Books by Mail, and Genealogy at the regional branch. Special things the CPL does for staff, like conference funding and tuition reimbursement, would also be eliminated. Here's the breakdown of the numbers. Option 2 saves the CCPL $331,107.98. This went a little over our goal, but only by $300. If you're interested, you can take a look at the supplemental materials for a full itemized list of the reductions. So why would trimming be a good idea? Trimming would fix some of the overarching problems with the budget. Staff would be able to retain their current levels of pay and positions. And programs like the Bookmobile service that cost $735 per person would be eliminated, and the materials and supplies budget would be reduced but not completely taken away. With trimming, we'd be looking at fewer new library materials, but no new library materials. Interlibrary loan could potentially be affected if the need for a replacement vehicle arises. Staff will no longer enjoy the benefits of job perks, and some patrons may not be served because of the elimination of Sunday hours and the Bookmobile service. The Bookmobile service is the only one that goes directly out into the community. Trimming does have several problems. With trimming, staff will be forced to pay their own professional development, and the staff turnover rate may increase due to the lack of those kind of job perks. Unmotivated or unhappy staff may affect our customer service, and that may result in unhappy patrons. And the goal of offering easy access to relevant materials will be directly compromised by the elimination of the Bookmobile service and Sunday hours. Putting option 2 into effect would again require library staff to carefully select new library materials. We would schedule staff meetings to discuss any changes. Public relations campaign would be needed to inform patrons about changes, especially changes that some people may find disappointing. And vendors would be contacted regarding possible cancellation of accounts or services. After considering two options that affect our patrons, we thought it only fair to consider one that requires a sacrifice on the part of the library staff. The third option would be to reduce how much the CCPL spends on staff compensation by 26%. And this is after we took into account the one-time expenses from previous years. This may result in layoffs, changes from full-time to part-time, or changes in benefits. We haven't outlined how the reductions would take place, just how much it would need to be decreased. With the staff reductions and other eliminations, option 3 would save a total of $329,966.46. And this does not meet our goal by $337. So is staff reduction a viable option? Staff reduction would help us get close to our goal of 18%, but not meet it. There would also seem to be no direct effect to any of the materials or collections. Looking at this option further, there would be fewer employees available to address patrons' needs and questions. And in fact, the day-to-day operations of our branches could be affected by the lack of staff or lowered employee morale. There are several problems with implementing staff reductions, especially for such a small staff. There's only 73 of us for 4 locations in a county with a population of nearly 60,000 people. If there are layoffs or changes to part-time, there's a possibility that the remaining staff will be more stressed out due to increased responsibilities, thus leading to a poorer quality of customer service. A reduction in benefits could also lead to employee burnout and dissatisfaction. Poor quality customer service could result in unsatisfied patrons. Staff reductions could also lead to there being too few staff members to actually keep all of the branches operating. There just might not be enough of us left to keep it going. If option 3 is enacted, branch managers would be in charge of how to handle the reductions for their locations. How much each location will be expected to decrease would also have to be determined. There would be staff meetings to discuss the changes and the impacts to the workflow, and management would ensure there is a fair evaluation process in place for determining staffing changes. And of course, like the other options, a public relations campaign would be needed to inform patrons. Sometimes there's no way around making cuts, so improvisations must be made. How do you combat cuts? What can be done to make up for the gaping hole in the budget for this fiscal year? We have 4 words for you, my friends. Additional sources of revenue. Location of additional funding sources may not completely make up for the funds that have been lost, but they can help soften the blow. Some of these additional sources can be found in partnerships with local businesses and organizations. We could change vendors in order to locate more affordable ones. We could increase our funding efforts, or even increase patron fines and fees, or some combination of all of the above. There are at least 3 ways to meet the goal of an 18% reduction to the overall budget, each of which has positive and negative aspects. The one that is to be chosen should be the one that does the most overall good for the community and can be easily made up for in additional or alternative sources of revenue. These are not easy decisions to make, and a budget cut is a scary idea. However, we know as an organization that we can survive this process. This concludes the CCPL's budget meeting. We are now open for any questions you might have. And this also concludes Group 6's budget presentation for LIS581. The following are sources used during the course of this presentation.